Welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the Masters of Engineering program here at KGI. We focus on how do we make biopharmaceuticals. And so let me give you a little bit of a background. Overall, the program is focused on what we call bioprocessing, when we're using living cells or parts of living cells to obtain desired products. So we're not looking at beer, which is certainly a bioprocess. We focus in biopharmaceutical processing on taking those same cells and using them to make vaccines, for instance. We are looking at the operations and the equipment used in the manufacturing processes. How do we build facilities that make the products we want at the capacity we need? Overlaid with the business of bioscience. So what KGI focuses on is preparing people to be leaders in their industry. So understanding the business components of the manufacturing process, the process development that's required to ensure that you have a robust ongoing manufacturing operation, and the business decisions that get made around that is the focus of the engineering program. So one of the things that's important to know is how we use biopharmaceuticals in getting ourselves out of COVID-19. So everybody knows about vaccines, and vaccines are the first biologic product and are one of the predominant areas we look at. But also we are looking at proteins as solutions. So there's a number of monoclonal antibodies that both treat and prevent the disease, and there's actually stem cell therapies looking to regenerate tissue in the lungs that's been damaged by the COVID disease. So we are seeing a very high desire for the talent that we're training in our program. The industry needs to fill these very technical, specific spots with students who already understand and can come in and help them as soon as they start working, because it's so important that we continue not only to manufacture the COVID products, but to continue to manufacture all the other products for cancer and other disease that we were looking at. So let me just introduce you to our program faculty and staff. So I am actually the director of the Amgen Bioprocessing Center and the program director for the Masters of Engineering program. We work as a team with the rest of the faculty shown here. So Dr. Dada is a bioseparations expert from, with his background in Kentucky. He worked at a national labs in Chicago. Dr. Partee is a regulatory and formulation pharmaceuticals expert, and he got his industry experience working at a company called Baxter, working on recovered blood products. And then that company was bought by Shire, and that's now Takeda. But he's been with us almost 5 years. Dr. Zhang, who's been here about 3 years, has a real focus on mammalian cells, including stem cell therapies that he researches in his labs here. And he comes to us from University College London, one of the founders of the bioprocessing, biochemical engineering programs around the world, and as well as having been a teacher in Australia. Mike Corus has joined us with a focus in the microbial aspects of our programs, as well as some of the diagnostics. And Mike comes from MIT, Boston University, from the East Coast. And then Ilya, who joined us a number of years ago, comes from Russia, and he is focused on some newer cell lines of Pichia, a type of yeast that are more productive and more robust for manufacturing these kind of products. And then we're supported by our lab lecturer, Aster, our lab manager, Natalie, and Leah, who is our executive assistant and operations manager, and keeps us all moving forward. So the program here is well supported by a number of faculty with really great diverse research expertise, and we're able, therefore, to provide a strong foundation across the entire bioprocessing space. And I'll introduce you to that in a minute. So our program is called the Masters of Engineering in Biopharmaceutical Processing. And I want to take a minute and talk first about biopharmaceuticals and what biopharmaceutical means. So when we talk about biopharmaceuticals, we tend to be talking about bigger products. And really it started in these this slide is a representation of how medicine has evolved into three types of treatments, or pillars of medicine, as we call them. And the first being molecular therapies includes the small molecules like aspirin and Lipitor and Januvia for diabetes, as well as any of the proteins that are single molecules. And now we're moving into gene therapies and cell therapies, where we're able to change organisms themselves in order to create opportunities for more advanced medical interventions. And we started in the biologic space with vaccines, and using the knowledge that we learned from how to do development and manufacturing of vaccines, we applied that and were able to learn how to make antibodies and proteins, starting with insulin. And now we've taken that knowledge and we've moved it to start looking at these more advanced spaces. And as I mentioned, we work in many of these areas here at KGI. We certainly cover all of them in our coursework at KGI. So to talk through the biologics themselves, we really need to think about why are they important? Why do they have a different name? Why do we use them in a different way? And it starts with, as I mentioned, the small molecules that we have historically been able to manufacture. And when we build small molecules, we tend to be able to build them atom by atom. We know exactly what we're putting together. We use all that great learning that we have from organic chemistry to build the structures, and then we can use analytical techniques to exactly understand what it is we built. When we talk about the biologics, starting with, for example, insulin, they start to get big. So you see that insulin is a lot bigger. So the molecular weight is what's shown below, and it is nearly 60 times bigger than the aspirin. The structure of EPO gets even more complex, and you see these different colors are telling you that these are different regions of the molecule, and that they have to be in each of those atoms as part of one of those balls in that group has to be in the right place for EPO to serve its function. And then finally, we have monoclonal antibodies, and there our challenge can be, how do we purify this? So monoclonal antibodies all look the same, except for minor changes in the binding cavity up here. And so how do we ensure that we purify away and get just the monoclonal antibodies with the right binding response that we're looking for? And so that's one of our challenges. In addition, so this is just in a molecular space. If we start to look at a little bit bigger than the molecular space, and we take our biggest molecule, the monoclonal antibodies, and we start comparing it to particles, for example, vaccine particle for human papillomavirus, and you can see that it's much, much larger, which much more challenge in structure and size, purity, and even more so when we move to the live virus vaccines, where we're trying to keep this live as well. So when we move from molecular into the space of biologic products and particles, we start to add more challenge. And then even to the extreme, looking at the cell therapies that we're trying to bring to the market today, where we need to bring all of the unique structures that you learned about in your biology class and make sure that we have them all functioning as we go through the manufacturing process and return it to the patients. So how do we use these products? And you can see this is an overall summary of the pipeline as of the end of last year, heading into 2021. And you can see big focus on oncology, still a problem, hard to solve, infectious disease, autoimmune. These are areas where biologics have provided some real key advances that we weren't able to get out of smaller molecules or other types of treatments. And one, of course, that we're all familiar with these days is COVID, where we monitor that pipeline separately. It is a part of the infectious disease pipeline. But you can see that these treatments, so the vaccines are all biologics. These treatments are probably about half of them are biologics. The antivirals do tend to be small molecules, but you can see what a big impact having a biomanufacturing expertise has on being able to respond to and hopefully close down this pandemic. And one of the things that I thought was interesting to share is over here on the right side, looking at the COVID vaccine pipeline. We did get some products through phase 3 and a few approved. And you would think that that meant that we were done, but we're not. You can see how we are as a business. You know, there's a lot more science and development going on, and we've got new products more and more coming in, and hopefully will provide different opportunities and more breadth to provide different control of the pandemic. So those are the products we make. So the other part of the Masters of Engineering program is the process. So we're really focused on the process to make those products. And so how do we do that? So I mentioned that they're very complex and that we can't put them together piece by piece the way we do with our small molecules. And so we leverage the machinery inside of cells that do this all the time. So cells know how to make proteins, cells know how to make viral particles, cells know how to make other cells. So we leverage the cells that are already out there, and we teach them by giving them the DNA for the material we want to make. Or even in the case of transgenic animals, we actually are using plants and animals to make those materials. So we start with microbial cells, was the first one where we demonstrated insulin could be made in E. coli. Microbial cells grow really fast, but they're not mammalian cells, and they don't make products that look exactly like mammalian products, which leads to some challenges in how to get them to refold. Insect cells are starting to be used more. They have a little bit more of that machinery. The heaviest focus is really on using mammalian cells to make these products that we use to treat humans, who are, of course, mammals themselves. And we have animal-derived cell lines as human-derived cell lines as well, with the intent there to make products that have the therapeutic capabilities closest to the human patients. So I'm going to talk through a little bit how we do that. We produce in what we call bioreactors. So if you're used to thinking about chemical reactions, well, we use biologic reactors or bioreactors. And then we purify the material, and then we formulate it. That is, we divvy it up into dosages and provide it in a way that patients can actually access the therapy. So what are those steps? So we start in research with finding a cell line. As I mentioned, it's getting these cells to make the product we want. That's the key to our business. And that's actually what most people refer to as biotech. Putting these genetic instructions into a different cell line to make the product that you're looking for is really the foundation of biotechnology. And you can see here some pictures where we're looking at different ways of doing that. And in the end, we end up with, we took a gene that came from, we either made it from some chemicals or we made it from some other animal tissue, recovered it, and then we mix it, we connect it to our plasmid, we put it in our plasmid puts it in here into the cell, and then it helps the cell to make that product. There are other ways to do that, which we cover in our coursework, but this was the first and probably the most fundamental way. And now once we have a cell line that makes the product that we want, then we can hand it off to a development group to say, hey, can you figure out how to make a lot more of that stuff? So we want to make a lot more of the product that we want to get to our patient. And that happens in the development group. So we take the cell line that we developed, hand it off to the development group, and they do work to figure out the right process. And what's shown here is the work they do in the bioreactors process. So how to make these cells grow more and more. We start with them in plates, then we move them to flasks, then we move them to small scale bioreactors, and then to bigger bioreactors. And finally, when we get to manufacturing, we get to an industrial scale bioreactor. And that industrial scale bioreactor is where we finally get started in our manufacturing process. Although we didn't show it here in the process development phase, there is process development happening for all of the manufacturing steps. So there's process development happening for the recovery and purification steps, as well as for the packaging steps that allow us to bring the material to the patients. And so we separate these into a couple of different areas. We have the upstream production process, or the USP. We have the downstream process, which is the purification. And then we have the final drug product. So we fill it, and then we finish it by putting it in a box and sending it off to our patients. And these are divided from a regulatory point of view into the drug substance and the drug product steps. We cover here at KGI all of these steps, all of this material, including this regulatory steps at the end, and how do you build a package that allows you to get approval so that you can commercialize a product. Now, when I talked about the 3 pillars of medicine, I mentioned that what we learned from vaccines let us learn how to make monoclonal antibodies, and that we're now leveraging that. And you can see here, as really the same building blocks get used regardless of the kind of process. This is from Andy Ramelmeyer at Sangamo, and compares the way that we can mix and match the different steps in order to make live viral vectors, which can either be used to generate cell therapies, can be used as gene therapies themselves, and are actually, probably you recognize the AAV as a gene therapy for COVID vaccine. So some of these vaccines are also gene therapies. And then we have cell therapy, where we take the cells and transform them by putting new gene information in there. So we get a gene transfer, and then we grow those cells and give them back to the patient. And then the patient has cells with new capabilities or returned capabilities to what they need to be healthy again. So what is the structure of this program that gets you ready to be able to help build these businesses and to help to make these products? So it's a 2-year program, as all our programs here at KGI are, in order to give you the robustness and the depth, as well as the breadth that you need to really contribute as a leader in these organizations. So it's not just content knowledge, it's leadership development, it's hands-on lab classes to make sure you know how to do the protocols that we use in our business. And it's collaborating with our subject matter experts, or SMEs from industry, who come in and help you learn and also hire you to help them complete projects. So how do we do that in detail? You can see the curriculum here. And the first thing to notice in the picture up above is that we bring in engineers and we help them learn the biology, and we bring in life scientists and we help them learn the engineering. And that, in the first year with the core courses and a team master's project that I'll mention in a minute, is really the fundamental focus on building your technical skills. There are business classes as well in the first year, and we're regulatory classes. So the whole foundation is being built in the first year. And then in the summer, there are options. Most people go out and do an industry internship. The great thing about that, we have a lot of connections, so you get great experience and you get paid. So a nice bonus over the summer. And then you come back with an understanding of how all that technical content that we discussed in the first year gets used. And we leverage the learning from the summer as well as from year one into your being able to manage a higher level core courses, more business courses, and then finally what we call the team design project. And that is our capstone, which we refer to as a molecule to manufacturing. So at the beginning of the year, in late August when we start, you pick your molecule, and your team gets to know that molecule well through the whole year. And by the end of the year, you've built a manufacturing plant that could make that molecule on paper, at least. So talking about the details of what's involved in that, it's a pretty extensive project. Big teams, 8 to 10 students, because there's a significant amount of work to do to cover all that upstream, downstream, drug product, regulatory, business, facilities. All of the components that we discussed as part of the curriculum are used and leveraged in building out this capstone deliverable. And you can see we do that through monthly presentations with the faculty, and it caps off at the end of the year with a TDP presentation day, where we invite industry members to come in and they work with our teams and challenge them, asking questions, understanding, and helping to make sure that what the students get from the project is relevant to the jobs that they would need when they move out into industry. So some experiences and how we do this. So I mentioned the hands-on lab courses. So I'll discuss here a little more detail that the first year there are 4 lab courses, and they cover all the components that we discussed in the processing space. So there's the biotechnology and vector design, which is the cell line development type activity. Mammalian and microbial cell culture fermentation are the upstream processing, and then bioseparations lab is focused on the purification steps. You also get to do a team master's project. And what you see in the picture at the top right is a team presenting their team master's project at an industry they're in an industry conference room talking to their industry sponsors. So they were assigned to solve a real world problem for this industry sponsor, something that they didn't have time to complete, but they needed to have this project done. And you can see that at the end of the year, we go to their sites and present. We also have a number of other industry site visits. Amgen typically, and when we're able to visit sites, we're typically able to visit Amgen. There are several local KITE and other local facilities here. IPS is an engineering company that has invited us down and helped our students learn how to use engineering tools. And then we have the Amgen Bioprocessing Center, ABC, Advisory Board meeting, which the ABCAB, the advisory board, sponsors an annual bioprocessing symposium. And there are industry presentations. We have an exhibit with for the new technology that's being developed in the industry, and really a great opportunity to rub elbows with and get to know some of the industry leadership. And our students really find that that gives them the visibility in the industry to get those prime internships and that first entry level position that allows them to grow. Mentioning the networking a little more, these are pictures. The upper left is an industry forum that had a meeting partially here at KGI. So brought a whole team of visitors from around the world to talk about bioprocessing information and technology. And on the right, Dr. Vic Vinci, who was our board chair, and see some students down below looking at some equipment, both of them part of the ABCAB Bioprocessing Symposium. And really look for and find opportunities for you as part of the industry contacts with both our alumni and our extensive overall network. So in addition to the Masters of Engineering program, we do support bioprocessing in a couple other programs at KGI. So the Masters of Business and Science students have an opportunity to pick bioprocessing as a focus. So they get their full Masters of Business and Science degree, but they take some of their electives are allocated to the bioprocessing classes. And so they get to do a little bit more of a dive into bioprocessing. And then they leave here with that tool and that vocabulary to be able to interact with their partners out in business. And we find that that really does accelerate people's career. We also have just recently started, at the suggestion of one of our students, a concentration in bioprocessing research for the Masters of Science program that we host. And these students are students who may be looking to go on for another degree or who are looking to work as scientists in the industry, but really want to understand bioprocessing better. And there are two components of that. You can two tracks. You can either take more courses and have a shorter research thesis, or take less courses and a longer research thesis, but really allows you to do both the science and the bioprocessing focus. And then we also, of course, have a PhD. So once you've got a master's from KGI, we really do encourage those who are interested in staying on and helping us to do cutting edge research in our labs here. So if you do go out to industry, the number of careers is very broad. There's a broad range of careers that you can participate in, from process development, technology transfer. So once a process is developed that you want to use it in a manufacturing site, somebody has to move it from one place to the other. That's called technology transfer. Manufacturing science and technology, which is a group that supports the scientific nature of the operations once you're in full-scale production. You can specialize. People specialize in upstream cell culture, downstream purification, drug product formulation, filling, and lyo. All areas that you can focus on in your career. And if you want to build facilities, all these facilities, of course, require design, process engineering and design. And then to the right are some more traditional business type careers for which many of our Masters of Engineering and our bioprocessing focused students have taken on over the course of the last few years. Because once you have this degree and you have this background, this breadth between the business, regulatory, and technical, you're able to move into roles and move across roles within an organization in a way to develop your career as a leader. But it's not all work. So we wanted to show you that we do have fun. Unfortunately, all of these pictures are 2 years old because we're not back to doing a lot of these things yet, certainly not without masks. But you can see, for example, in the middle, you can see our Scream on Screen night. So that was watching Halloween movies out in the evening event. Some of these pictures are from the ABCAB event, and you can see people taking pictures. We have ice cream social to welcome our new students back. We've got a luau that was for our international students kickoff. So we have a lot of social activities as well. And then I want to take a minute and talk about our summer program. So the summer program that's focused on the bioprocessing space, you can see the students up there in the corner in the labs, having done some of their bioprocessing activities that we call it B-Suite, Bioprocessing Summer Undergraduate Internship Training and Innovation and Education. So you can see that what we do is really mini touch points of all the things we cover in the program. So we talk about all the different aspects of bioprocessing, upstream, downstream, final drug product, regulatory. We talk about business. We bring in industry speakers every day at lunch to give you their perspective on careers and opportunities. We, at the moment, are doing virtual tours, but we are looking at bringing together next year. We would have a hybrid session where we can have 2 weeks of people doing virtual, and we'll do virtual tours, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to host an on-campus session. That's our plan for a 5-week on-campus session. And so you can go to the link here to apply. And here's some pictures from the summer program that we have fun. So you can see not only do we have fun out and about, having dinner, going to wineries, but we have fun in our labs. That's one of our students, Mohammed, actually pouring a beer wort for beer fermentation. Even in the labs, we actually have fun. You can see we're taking goofy pictures. Everybody gets really comfortable with each other. And then just to finish off with some success stories, where do people go? So the top 10 employers for bioprocessing, you can see here on the right, all the big companies, Amgen, Genentech, Gilead, Kite, all Takeda, also some equipment manufacturers like Broadley James and Sartorius. And we continue to have a number of new startup companies that support us every year. We, I could go on and on with this list. Catalent, BI is on here. It's just so many different opportunities that our students have. Another thing that's not here yet, but we are starting to see that our students are really sought after for the cultured meat or the advanced food bioprocessing space. So making foods from a non-traditional source, for example, Beyond Burger and some of these other types of material of foods. So you can see that's actually what Michael's doing at Just, where they make chicken nuggets. Divya is working in a more traditional space, doing cell line development projects and helping clients be able to make products more efficiently. Brent is at a cell therapy company, a stem cell company in the San Diego area. And Ryland is working at Avid, and you can see that, really lots of choices there. Hannah works up at BI, which is a manufacturing organization in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have students in Seattle, in Boston, in Pennsylvania, in Maryland. And so we're willing to help you get the job that you're looking for, wherever that is. So back to the program, who should apply? So anybody who's interested in a fast-growing career from a leadership point of view. We bring in, as I mentioned, both life sciences and engineering majors. We do recommend a year college of math, whether that's calculus or statistics. We do some calculus in the first year programs, some of the engineering calculations, and then a semester at least of physics, just to kind of understand what's happening. And then for B-Suite, we're really looking we find the students who get the most out of the program are those that have completed at least their junior year, so that they have the knowledge of the biology, the biochemistry, and the science that's needed to really bring those projects forward and to understand and learn from the lab projects. So why KGI? Well, first of all, it's beautiful. You can see here the picture of how we're nestled in under the mountains there. We're outside of Los Angeles. We typically use this airport over here, the Ontario airport, because it's much closer and simpler to get in and out of, but we aren't that far from LAX. And there's beaches pretty much an hour away all the way around. We're kind of in the center of the circle that is the beaches of Southern California. Up over here, we also have the mountains for hiking. Big Bear has a ski resort, so lots of opportunities for outdoor experience as well as our indoor classrooms. So to finish up, just want to conclude, when you're thinking about programs and why pick KGI, we can offer you an exciting career in the development and manufacturing across different healthcare opportunities. If you want to expand your roles, we find that sometimes maybe about 10 to 30%, depending on the year, of our students are those who did go get an industry job and then found they weren't growing as quickly as they wanted, and they really needed to build out their skill set, so they came back to us. And we work with all the top healthcare and life sciences companies, our partners, and we give you that opportunity to network with them. So if you have more questions, please reach out. We have the admissions counselors, their phone number and their emails here. KGI.edu is, of course, full of good information. Just poke around on that page. If you're looking for the information on bioprocessing, you can just search for bioprocessing and you'll find the Amgen Bioprocessing Center page, and you can read more details. Feel free to send us emails if you're interested in B-Suite or MEng. We have specific email accounts to be able to capture your interest, so feel free to catch us there. And then, of course, we're represented on all the social media out there. So thanks for taking time to listen to us here, and we hope to have you join us here at KGI.